Hello and welcome back for the MLB DFS Slate breakdown for Monday, July 31st. We are here. We're back. It was a good weekend, but now we're back to the week. Let's make it happen today. Before we get into it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to all our videos. And if you have not already, come join us at LineStar. Only $29.99 gets you access to all of our DFS, all of our prop stuff, the projections, the optimizers, props AI, all of it. And if that is too much, you could always try our 3 free day trial. Get your feet wet before you fully jump in. The 3 free day trial is available through the App Store, through both Android and iPhone app stores. Now, let's get into the slate. So we're going to start off by going over Sunday's main slate on both FanDuel and DraftKings, and then we will get into the pitchers and followed by hitter stacks on both sites. So let's dig into it. All right, so DraftKings, perfect lineup. We got Yarborough, Savale, and then nice little 2-2 with Cleveland and the Pirates there. So nice little lineup once again, as always, or as most of the time. Perfect lineup, doesn't use all of the salary just because that's what happens, and it's almost impossible to figure out all of the chalk that's going to go off for every slate, and that is what happens with the perfect lineup. They figure it out. All right, now winning lineup yesterday, Jimbo Pats. He won by 10 points. He got Matz and Yarborough. Then he had 3-man Milwaukee, and a 2-man Mets stack here, and then some one-offs there. Way to go. He won by 10 points. Nice little lineup there. Yarborough was sneaky, being a low-owned pitcher, and he had a day. So congrats to Jimbo. You got it done. Now let's check out the FanDuel perfect lineup here. Once again, Yarborough showing up. Got a little Pittsburgh 2-manner in there as well. And the lineup on FanDuel that won the 20K, you don't know. Won 20K, and I love to see it. Dick Mountain was the winning pitcher. I had a little bit of him yesterday. I thought he was in a decent spot here. He was really cheap. 6% owned, so pretty low owned pitcher. And then we had a nice 3-man Cleveland stack and a 4-man Atlanta stack with Yelich here as the one-off. So real nice lineup there. Some nice correlation. Got it done for the man. Now let's get in to today's slate. Get over to DraftKings as we always start there and get myself out of the way. So we got Tyler Glasnow coming in as the highest owned pitcher on the slate at 38% owned. And I mean, Glasnow's been great. He's in a good spot. The one thing I do have to say, this Yankee offense is different with Judge in the lineup. So they are a decent hitting team with Judge, pretty bad without him. Crazy how one guy means that much to a lineup, but he does. But altogether, the team hasn't been great versus righties, and they're striking out 22.7% here. So Glasnow, meanwhile, has just been great. 34% K rate, a FIP in the 2s. StatCast data is a little sketchy with giving up some hard contact, but very little fly balls, some ground balls, a lot of ground balls, and some line drives. But all in all, Glasnow looks like he's been pitching very well. 28% combined K rate, so that looks very good today. The one thing we do have to bring up is he's averaging less fantasy points away, 25% less, and New York has done well versus him in the past. 42 plate attempts. They're hitting 278 off him. They are striking out at 31%, but they are hitting him a little bit. If you look at his past performances, it's been okay. Only one real blow-up game. The rest are kind of his average, medium outcome type performances. So do with that information what you will. Next, we got Nick Pivetta, 6,600. I have no clue how this guy has been pitching as well as he has out of the bullpen, but he has been. And with that, I think you got to consider him at 6,600. The one thing, like they've been letting him go 5 innings, 80 pitches, 6 innings, 87, 5, 76. So I think you can expect a decent amount of pitches, decent amount of innings from him, and his K rate over his last 5 starts has been 43%. Now, I do not think that is sustainable whatsoever, but he is in a good matchup today with strikeouts, 23% K rate for righties. The one thing is Seattle can hit righties. 184 ISO, 320 WOBA. They are decent versus righties. But at 6,600, you have to consider Pivetta. He's just been too good not to. Charlie Morton next, 31% owned, 9,300. One thing I have to say here is, all right, so the Angels strike out a ton versus righties, 28% K rate. But, there's a big but here. There's extremely good hitting weather, and they do hit righties well. So I think this matchup lines up really well for Morton to have one of his games where he has, 7, 8, 9 Ks, something like that, but he gives up 3 or 4 runs. I think that's a pretty high likelihood for Morton today. The Angels offense can get to you. Ohtani, he probably hits a home run today. He's in a decent spot. Morton gives up hard contact. He gives up some home runs. So I think the Angels put up a couple runs, but I think that Morton puts up some Ks. So it's an interesting one. I don't mind going there. LineStar doesn't like it. This is probably one of the higher owned fades for LineStar right now, showing only a 15-point projection at 9,300. George Kirby, 8,600, decent little projection there. We do have to bring up that Boston's good versus righties, over a 200 ISO, 350 WOBA, strike out a decent amount, but Kirby's been a really good pitcher, and he's been better at home, 38% more fantasy points at home. His StatCast data is a little sketchy here, but with how much better he is at home, I think you have to consider him at 8,600. The K rate seems to be going up a little bit recently as well, which I think he is 1K per inning type guy. He was, better than that in the minors, and that K stuff we just haven't fully seen yet. But he's in a decent spot. I do not mind him whatsoever. Seth Lugo. First of all, there's big-time weather issues in Colorado, so make sure to watch what the weather happens. This game, I think, is at risk of postponement. If it's not, it's a Colorado game, but Lugo is super cheap, and that Colorado offense is suffering big time right now. One thing is, Lugo's never really been much of a starter in Colorado, so not much old data to go off there. But Lugo's been great all year long, so you can absolutely consider him when Colorado's striking out 26% versus righties, and Lugo has been, this good. Just very much pay attention to weather if you're going to play Lugo, just because, one, there's the weather risk. Also, it's in Colorado, so it's always hard to pick games in Colorado. Herman. So, winds blowing out, nice hitting weather in New York. Herman's been okay. That K rate's been real nice lately. I don't know if that's sustainable, but Tampa Bay does hit righties well, and he has done well versus Tampa in the past. 82 plate attempts, only hitting 230 off him. They're 23% K rate over that. I don't mind Herman at his price. I just don't love him. Him as a pitcher, I'm not that fond of. However, I think for price, projection, everything, he's in a decent spot here today. I would expect him to give up a home run or two, though. Excuse me. Corbin Burnes. This is the one that I don't quite understand today. Washington is not that great of an offense. Corbin Burnes has been lights out lately, but yet he's getting no ownership. 34% K rate over his last 5, 2.3 FIP over that span. And nobody wants to go here. You know, we have a decent projection for him at 10.2K. I would not be surprised whatsoever if Burnes outpaced Glasnow as far as a fantasy points projection. Or sorry, production, not projection today. And so him going at a super low ownership is just kind of weird to me. And if it stays like this, I will be on some Burnes without a doubt. Next, we got Bassett, 7,500. You know, he looks okay. The one thing I do have to bring up is this Baltimore offense is really good, and Bassett has got crushed versus them in the past. He is, however, averaging 62% more fantasy points at home. So if you're going to play a Bassett, you play him at home. And we have seen him have some real blow-up games. And look, one of the best games he had all season was against the Braves. Then also the Mets and the Giants. So he is beat up on decent offenses, which 2 of those 3 blow-up games were at home. So he very well could. It just is a tough spot for him versus Baltimore. But price is right with the upside he has. Andrew Abbott's another one here where I think if you want to pay up, he's a nice little pivot. He's been good. Mid-3s FIP, 28% K rate. All of that looks fine. The wind is blowing in today at Wrigley, so maybe not quite as many home runs. He allows a lot of fly balls, so that wind will definitely be knocking the ball and keeping it in the park a little bit. So I definitely think Abbott is a bit interesting as another, pivot off, say, Glasnow or Morton. So both those look very interesting to me. France doesn't really have the K upside that I would want, so I'll probably be staying off him against a team that doesn't really strike out. Now let's look at some FanDuel pitchers here. All right, so FanDuel, we got Charlie Morton taking the most ownership, 29%, Glasnow 23%, Herman 17%, and Pivetta 15%. So with Pivetta, there's some news that came out saying that he's going to start today. So maybe he's pitched himself back in to the starting rotation. That is interesting for FanDuel because it opens up the fact that he could get a quality start, which is 4 extra points. So I think Pivetta is in play at 8,000. He has been very good recently. Does it really matter that much if he's brought in the second inning or the first inning? I mean, probably not. The dude has confidence right now, and he's been pitching really well. And we have seen throughout the years when he's pitching good, he's really good. But, he can get shelled when he's pitching bad. And I think right now is a time that I would probably be a little bit on the Pivetta train here. Kirby's a little interesting at 9,800 and low owned. And then same nice, higher or more expensive pivots. We got Abbott and Burnes. I have pretty much no ownership. I think though they're really interesting here on FanDuel at no ownership with their upsides. So nice little slate we got so far. Should be a fun one. Now let's get into some stacks here. As far as, just a little bit of overview for hitting wise today, we got really nice hitting weather in Atlanta. Shows with, decent pitchers and a 9.5 game total. They're expecting some offense there. Colorado, San Diego is the Coors game. So you obviously got to watch this one. The one thing, 5:40 start. Slate starts at 4 o'clock, and there is major weather concern there. So we may not know what's going to happen weather-wise there until after lock. Just make sure you're watching that weather if you're considering them. All right, now highest owned, no surprise, it's Padres. It's a Coors slate. The Padres have been crushing the ball, and Gomber just isn't very good. So you got to consider the Padres if you think that game is going to play. Next, we got the Brewers versus Jake Irvin. Another spot. Look, Jake Irvin's not that good, so it makes a lot of sense to stack the Brewers. Braves. I really like the Braves today. I've liked them over all weekend, really, just because they've had great hitting weather in Atlanta, and when that happens, there's some home runs. So at least a mini stack of the Braves, I think, is really interesting today. Colorado, definitely interesting. We don't know how Lugo's going to pitch in Colorado with the elevation and all that, but they're going to be a super, super cheap stack today. Gertrick is gone. Cron is gone. It's going to be all cheap guys in that lineup. And you have that Colorado elevation at not much ownership. So it's interesting. Toronto versus Kyle Gibson. Not bad. Don't love it. Houston. I think Houston looks really interesting. Syndergaard just got traded to Cleveland. He's been trashed this year. And we'll see if he has changed anything, but I would expect he hasn't gotten much better, and so Houston looks very, very interesting. Tampa Bay is also interesting. Herman, he's been decent lately, but the one thing I will say is that he can get hit, and we have nice hitting weather in New York, so definitely consider Tampa Bay. All right, highest projection here. Padres, Braves, Houston, pretty much exactly what we were talking about. Also consider Cincinnati here with Stroman, who hasn't quite been as good lately. 4.5 FIP over his last 5. So they are definitely interesting. Value side. We got Yankees versus Glasnow. Yeah, this stack is just real cheap, and I just don't see it. Not versus Glasnow. Can it happen? Absolutely. The Yankees would be your leverage stack of the day. And with doing that, I mean, I wouldn't play this exact lineup. I would probably make sure to have Judge or Stanton or one of their bigger hitters in there as well. But it does make, a little sense as far as the leverage to go to the Yankees versus Glasnow, with Glasnow being one of the higher owned pitchers. Same goes for the Angels. Nice little leverage against Morton. We know Morton can give up home runs. Good hitting weather in Atlanta. So picking on Morton makes a little bit of sense as well. Rest of the leverage spots definitely are interesting. JP France hasn't really got slammed yet. So I don't know if he does here, but Cleveland's been hot, so it makes some sense here. Giants against Ryan Nelson's very interesting. Nelson hasn't been good. 6.45 FIP. This Giants offense is a little sneaky, so kind of like that there too. Now highest ceiling. I mean, we got Braves, we got Houston, we got Boston versus Kirby, which, I don't love that much, but Kirby can get got. Cubs versus Andrew Abbott. One thing I have to say about this, if the weather changed and it's blowing out instead of blowing in, my view on this game would change totally. Andrew Abbott allows a lot of fly balls, but the wind can really, really affect the game in Wrigley. And with it blowing in, I just don't expect as many home runs. And so for that reason, I'm kind of out on the Cubs. But with how many fly balls Abbott allows, there definitely could be some home runs. Then it just comes down to, are there people on base or not? I think you have to consider the Diamondbacks too. They're pretty much a everyday consideration these days. All right, well, that will do it for us today. We got a good, nice little slate here. Highest implied run total, San Diego by 0.9 runs. It's a pretty big difference here, but Braves coming in second, then Colorado, Houston, Milwaukee, Toronto. So all of them are pretty interesting. We also have some, leverage stacks down here that we talked about that are a bit interesting. But I think it's going to be a fun slate. I like these 8, 9, 10 game size slates. And I think there's a lot of ways to go here. Just one thing, make sure to pay attention to weather in Colorado. That changes the slate quite a bit if it PPDs. All right, guys, have a good one. Good luck. See you tomorrow. Bye.